AI का full फायदा उठा रहे हैं.
Nice,
Yeah.
man. We're in a very good transformational change
Hmm.
of era times.
Hmm.
What's up? Wait, should we discuss only about the book or should we catch up first about lives and then move to the book?
Yeah, we can catch up about life.
And that also will be recorded, huh?
Yeah, but I can
What
cut
about?
that out in the recording. That's fine.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. सब वीडियो एडिटिंग skills है हमारे पास. Hmm. Yeah, on that
Yeah.
gray note, gray and gray. Nice. Yeah. On that gray note, let's start the podcast, bro. Uh,
Let's start the podcast. Yeah.
so I think we can just take a few minutes to talk about the book that you read and the book that I read,
Mm,
and then uh, we can ask each other questions after that, or
mm.
like discuss it further. Yeah.
Cool.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Um, you go first.
Hmm. Okay, 1 second. I'm drinking protein shake.
Drink, macha.
Because muscle mass is very important.
Yep, for the podcast.
Hmm. Is the brain a muscle?
Define muscle. Muscle is something used to um, move stuff from, or what is the defining character of a muscle? One thing I know is if you drink protein, it grows, right? It becomes bigger. So I don't think brain becomes that much big if you drink protein. So it should not be. I'm guessing
No, but
based on this.
it's not necessary that all kinds of muscles grow bigger. Like the heart is also a muscle.
It's a
So,
muscle?
bro, what? Yeah, bro.
That's
Heart-
exactly the knowledge gap, dude. Like, why is heart a muscle? So we should understand why, what is a muscle?
it's a particular kind of tissue
Hmm.
which which can expand and contract. So I don't think the brain has that kind of activity. It's mostly tissue and fat, but it's not muscle tissue, I guess.
Hmm.
But it's a good question. What is a muscle?
So based on uh, Gemini overview, a muscle is a specialized soft tissue made of fibers that
Hmm.
can contract to produce movement, maintain posture, and circulate fluids.
Ah, circulate
Hmm.
fluids. So I guess that's where heart and all something.
Heart comes into the picture, huh? So lungs is also muscles then. There's
Hmm.
skeletal, voluntary movement. Then there is smooth, involuntary, like digestion, and cardiac, heartbeat. Okay. There are three
Hmm.
types. So cardiac is itself is a type of muscle, it seems.
Yeah. Striated, unstriated, and cardiac, I guess. All
Yes.
memorized from ninth standard.
Nice, dude. This is what we want. The topic that I'm going to discuss is about knowledge,
Uh,
epistemology, and how
hmm.
humans um, have become such a, what is that? Strong force on this nature and
Hmm.
sort of adapted and uh, I don't know, transformed everything and leading a comfortable life compared to other species because of knowledge. It's the knowledge that sets us apart from all the other species. Okay, we'll go into that later, but let's start with your uh, preface of your book and what you
Okay,
have
bro.
to, what you've read. Yeah.
Yeah, so the book I read was The Worldly Philosophers by Robert Heilbroner.
Is that the book we agreed on, or
Yeah,
did you change the
yeah.
book? Okay,
No, it
cool.
was the
Sorry.
book we agreed on.
Okay, cut.
So,
Okay.
uh,
I
uh,
don't want to
yes.
question.
So
Yeah, okay.
the book was about the history of economics, basically history of
Hmm.
economics and economists. So I I've been interested in getting like an overview of the important subjects in human culture and science,
Mm.
like economics, history, uh, what else, chip
Philosophy.
design, philosophy, uh, mathematics, things like that. So in some areas I have an understanding, in some areas like I'm absolutely zero. So in economics, I'm familiar with a lot of the names like Adam Smith, uh, Karl Marx, John
Mm.
Maynard Keynes. These names keep coming up often when people talk about economics. And I've heard about their theories briefly. Like
Mm.
Adam Smith is called the father of capitalism, and Karl Marx was responsible for the rise of socialism and communism. But what exactly were their ideas? Like, why were they so revolutionary? And what was the life of the person who came up with that theory like? Because unlike science, which is about objectively studying the world, economics is also a product of the historical context in which it is born in. Like, it is it's got to do with observing how society works and trying to formulate a vision about how markets are supposed to work. What is the ideal way for humans to transact? What's the ideal way for wealth to be distributed? What does the future look like if we continue on this track? Is it going to be more prosperous, less prosperous? Uh, and how can we put in governance so that things become more prosperous? Or like,
Mm.
should there be government intervention? Should there not be government intervention? How should the government control the money supply? Should there be tariffs? Should there be taxes? All of these things come under economics. So it's,
Mm.
if I had to define economics, it would be something like uh, an organizing theory to bring people together to understand human society through the lens of the market system. So, suppose religion tries to understand people through the lens of spirituality, and history tries to understand people through the lens of events that happened. Economics tries to understand people through the market transactions they do, the monetary transactions they do, how people produce goods, exchange them, the conditions in which they exchange them, and the conditions in which the economy develops.
Mm.
So, yeah, like the book was written in a very engaging style. It has about 13 chapters, I think. So each chapter deals with a particular period in history and
Mm.
the main economists who worked in that period of time. It describes their life, like what were the uh, historical events happening at that time, what was the environment they grew up in, what was the world that they saw, and then it goes into the theory that they developed. So like they saw all
Mm.
this happening and then they tried to make sense of it, and this is the theory they came up with.
Mm.
So I found the first 3 4 chapters of the book to be very dense and full of uh, strong mental models to understand how to think about economics. So like
Mm.
one of the first questions in the book was, for about 2000 years after Christ, or like say till about 1600, 1700, there was no science called economics. So there was physics, there was biology, and there was mathematics, and all of that was going on. But there was no subject called economics being taught in colleges. There was no theory called economics. So the question was why? Why was economics not a science till that point in time? And the theory was economics, especially the capitalist form of economics that we are studying, it needs three ingredients: land, labor, and capital. So before 1600 or 1700, uh, all of these ingredients were tightly coupled with the government and the monarchy and the church and things like that. So they look at it mainly from a Western lens. They're not talking much about what happened in India or China and stuff like that. But when they look at, say, England or Greece or Scotland or America,
Mm.
so America didn't exist before 1776. So if you look at the 1600s or 1700s, land was not uh, a fungible unit that could be traded. It's not something you could break into pieces and sell to people. Land was something that was tightly tied to your family and your estate and uh, your what do you call it? Uh, your line of your ancestry, basically. So you could
Mm,
give it away. You could exchange it during marriage. You could exchange it during functions and stuff like that. There were like informal rules about how land could be transferred and stuff, but it's not something you could break into pieces and sell for money. It was
mm,
not like a commercial thing.
mm,
Similarly, labor was also not something that could be freely sold on the market. Like right now we are on the labor market, we can be free agents, we can freely sell our values. But back then you are either bound in service to like a particular household, like you would be a knight working under somebody, or you would be a like a craftsman working under a nobleman's family or something like that. You would be bound to that household. You would be a chef working for a house. You would be like a horse maintenance guy working for a household. You would be a carpenter working for a household or something like that. Or if you were like an individual craftsman, then there were these things called guilds, which were associations, and those associations determined how many people could practice a particular trade in a village. So if you were a tailor, you couldn't go and start your own business. You had to get the permission of the tailors guild in that town. You had to
mm.
get like a certificate from them, and they would regulate there can be only like 5 tailors in the city. And even the things that you can provide as services, like if you say I want to make a new kind of pant, I want to make a new kind of shirt, I want to
One
use.
second, dude. Sorry for the
Hmm,
interruption. So
yeah.
how we're doing this? Is it more like each person talks at a length and the other person talks, or is it going to be more like a dialogue conversation kind of thing where we
Hmm,
interrupt each other and maybe go on a tangent,
hmm.
talking and going deep on certain topics or something?
You can interrupt if you have something to ask. If you want something to add, you can interrupt. Like if you're not
Yeah.
understanding it, I think you should interrupt. Or if
Yeah.
something is not clear, like basically, I'm trying to
Or
communicate what I
what
learned
if
in the book.
what if the other person has some thoughts to share? Need not be that they did not understand, but they just
Hmm.
have some thoughts.
Yeah, you can just like raise your hand and like share, I guess, just
Click,
so
click,
that you
click.
don't interrupt the flow. Or, uh,
Okay.
like if
Okay.
the other person is talking and they want to complete the sentence, you can just like be like, yeah, I
Cool,
have
cool,
something to say, and then like you can mediate like that.
cool.
Yeah. So these guilds associations were mediating who could be hired, what salary you could set, what sort of products you could make, and all of those things. So
Hmm,
and making money, like the capital part of capitalism, was considered evil before say 1600, 1700. The idea was
hmm,
that common people are not supposed to make money. Making money is bad. Being greedy
hmm,
is a sin according to Christianity and all of that. It's only
hmm,
when the influence of the Catholic Church started going down and Protestantism started rising, which is like the dominant religion of America, Protestant Christianity. It's only then, like the Protestant work ethic was that you can simply raising hand up.
No,
Hey,
dude, I had a question.
yeah,
What is Protestantism?
okay. So Christianity has many flavors, like many branches.
Huh.
Uh, so the Catholic Church was the dominant branch, which started in Rome, and it's associated with Vatican City, the Pope, and things like
Hmm,
that.
hmm,
But there is also another, like the Catholic Church had a lot of emphasis on certain practices and rituals,
hmm,
like worshipping Mother Mary and doing things a certain way and all of that.
hmm,
So there was a guy called Martin Luther King who was like, no, like all of these practices are not the Martin Luther King Jr. who was the revolutionary in America. This was another Martin Luther King in say I don't know when, maybe 1300s, 1400s. He was a German guy, And he was like, we are not following the actual practices described in the Bible. uh,
mm,
we shouldn't be giving so much importance to all these rituals. We should focus on the main teachings of the Bible and on Jesus as God.
mm,
And he created a different branch of Christianity, which is called Protestantism or Protestantism.
mm,
And uh, there was a big split in the church at that point. Like the
mm.
Catholics didn't uh, get along with the Protestants didn't get along with the Catholics. And geographically, I think many different countries were dominated by different branches of Christianity. Like, for example, Italy and uh, like a lot of Europe was dominated by Catholics. France, Italy, Spain, all of this was dominated by Catholics. Whereas England and Ireland and Scotland, all of these places were dominated by Protestants. So
Mhm,
it was also a political thing. Like the Catholic Church had a lot of influence over the English monarchy, and they were telling the king and queen what to do. They were trying to exert control on the government of England and stuff like that. So the government of England didn't want all of this dominance from the Catholic Church. So they broke away from the
mm,
Catholic Church and kind of made the state independent from the church in some respects. So
mm,
that was like a rebellion of sorts.
mm,
So that movement was going on for a long time. And when England started moving away from uh, Catholicism to Protestantism, the
mm,
philosophy of what is moral, it's okay to make money, it's okay to work hard and make money as long as you're doing it for God's glory or something like that. Such ideas started entering the mainstream, and capital also started becoming like a valid form of uh, expressing yourself. Like doing work and accumulating money became like a valid thing, accepted thing. So sometime around the 1600, 1700, like uh, land started getting decoupled from the nobility. Like the influence of the landowners, all
mm,
these noble families, knights, that started reducing. And the industrial revolution started coming up. People were started doing business for business's sake, and for that they had to hire people like labor, factory workers and stuff like that. So this concept of labor has to be associated with an association or with a particular family, that started going away. And the three ingredients like land, labor and capital, they became decoupled from uh, the ways of life of people. They just became three independent entities that you could move around. You can trade it for money, you
And these
can
are the
borrow
three
money.
ingredients of what again?
Capitalism.
Oh,
To like
yeah, okay.
to like have a market, to start a business, you need land, labor and capital, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
that was not freely tradable earlier. Like if you are a businessman with an idea, you can't just go buy land, borrow money and hire people. Like these are the three basic things you needed to do, and you couldn't do this without like a lot of permission. There was no free market. But sometime around 1600, 1700, this started coming into the picture. You could start factories, you could hire people, you could buy land and like set up a building and make wool, you could make cloth, whatever. And like the influence of the guilds, like the guilds would dictate what sort of pant you could make, what sort of cloth you could make, what are the practices, standards and all of that. Their influence started going away when people started innovating. Like if you started making better products and you are free to sell your own products, at some point your influence started dominating the market. It's exactly like what's going on with the AI revolution now, where a lot of people are protesting like you shouldn't bring AI and technology into the picture. You're taking away our livelihoods. We tell you what is valid and stuff like that. But because AI content is flooding the market, at some point they will lose their influence. Like there'll just be like so much product that the product will speak for itself. And
and the market will
people,
determine the course, right? Like
exactly.
versus some
Yeah.
people saying, "Hey, do this, do that." Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this first couple of chapters set the base for how the book unfolds. Like
Mm,
they talk about land, labor, and capital, and then each chapter talks about like some major philosopher and his philosophy. I don't want to
Mm.
go into all the philosophers, but I think, say, two or three chapters were extremely
Excuse me.
interesting. So the first one was Adam Smith. He's very
Mm.
famous. He wrote this book called Wealth of Nations. And the cool part is that Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations in 1776. And a
Oh,
few
the
months
same
later,
year
America.
America
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
America was formed in the same year. So
Hmm.
he knew Benjamin Franklin. Okay. So, like, there was
Uh,
obviously some
Sort of
exchange of,
influence, some ideas
yeah,
exchange.
yeah.
Uh,
There was
that's
some
very
exchange of
interesting.
ideas going on, and it's almost like America was a country that was born with capitalism. Like
Yeah.
Adam Smith is called the father of capitalism, and he wrote this huge book which talked about the evolution of business, the evolution of economics, how free trade works. He came up with these concepts like the invisible hand of the market. Like, there are no people coordinating to set prices. Like, it's not
Mm.
like all the shopkeepers are getting together and setting a price, but
Mm.
just because of demand and supply and competition, people will compete and like try to be competitive, and that competition will also make people more efficient. It will also bring down prices, and the customer will win in the end. And
Mm.
how that will give more employment to people, that will bring prosperity to a society. Like, as more products come in, more innovation comes in, it increases the standard of life of the average person more than it benefits the people at the top.
Mm.
That was his theory. And
Mm.
his theory was applicable at a time when there was not much mechanization and automation going on.
Mm.
So he wrote with that kind of world in his mind, and he wrote that book for 12 years. So he just took 12 years of his life off, and he just wrote
Damn.
the book, and then he published it. I think he wrote just two books in his life. One is The Theory of Moral Sentiments, one is Wealth of Nations, and he was a star in his time. So obviously, like, it's like some 800 pages of content. Uh,
Damn.
and yeah, like, it was very cool to read about his ideas about people thinking about capitalism uh, in an analytical way for the first time. Like, how do you efficiently produce goods, division of labor, specialization of skills? Like, instead of one person trying to do everything, how do you convert a production process into like multiple pieces and make one person specialize in every part of the process so that you can produce goods at a much faster pace? How does that translate into starting a factory? How does that translate into trade and commerce and all of those things? So he thought very deeply about all of these things, and uh, it's very cool to see the birth of economics in that way. So after Adam Smith, there are a lot of people who come into the picture. Like, there's a guy called Ricardo who talks about free trade and opportunity cost and tariffs and things like that. There's a guy called
Mm.
Malthus who we've heard of Malthus's curve, which is like population explosion is exponential and stuff like that. So he was worried that if economic growth keeps happening, then population will explode. There will be not enough resources for everybody to go around, and there will be economic collapse and stuff like that. So then, after these people, there was somebody called Henry George, who was talking about how, like, these landowners and the ruling class, they don't bring much productivity into the economy, and they make a lot of money just by collecting rent, and how that isn't good for the economy. Rent seeking isn't like productive activity and stuff like that. So all of these people are bringing different ideas, but I think the next major uh, economist was Marx, Karl Marx. So
Mm.
when the sometime around the 1900s, when so he started writing around 1848, 1850 or something.
Mm.
Adam Smith was 1776, so like nearly 60, 70 years had passed since he wrote Wealth of Nations. But industrialization had happened, a lot of automation had come in, a lot of machinery had come in, and Karl Marx was seeing this real degradation in the lifestyle of human beings. Like,
Mm.
people are able to automate things and treat their employees very badly without any labor code, without any proper wages being paid and all that. and he tried to analyze why capitalism is an evil system. Like, according to him, capitalism as an idea itself was evil. He was like, capitalism ripped apart the way of life of people from the way they work. Like to a hunter, like hunting was just a part of his day. It was not like he was trying to make some economic goods and sell it on the market. But
mm,
now, and like uh, a hunter would hunt, and then he would use that hunting as a basis for bonding with his people. He would build rituals around it. He would interact with his fellow community members through the processes of hunting and stuff like that. So it's like the work he was doing was a part of his lifestyle. But now it's like people started talking about work life balance. Like, I don't know if they called it work life balance back then, but work and life are basically split apart. Like, you go to a factory and work, and then you go and try to have a life separate from that. It was not like your work was interwoven with your life, because it was being decoupled as like a mechanical thing. And Karl Marx saw that this would end up very bad for the working class people and the labor class. So he did a very deep analysis of capitalism as an idea. He was like,
mm,
even in the best case, imagine capitalism works in the best possible way. Even if it works exactly in the way that capitalists imagine, and they say like it's supposed to work this way, it's going to put incentives into place that make them compete very hard against each other. And even if
mm,
a capitalist wants to be good, he can't be good. To survive in the market, he has to try to maximize his margins. He has to try to maximize efficiency. And because of that, he will be forced to cut wages. He will be forced to automate as much as he can. And if he doesn't do that, if he tries to be an ethical, good capitalist, he will be killed in the market. He'll be driven out of the market. So finally, the market becomes. So he combined Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest, with economics. And he was like, capitalism is like survival of the fittest, and it puts hands in the powers of the most ruthless, most greedy people. Like, it sets up a system where these people will emerge victorious. And because it sets up the incentives like that, it's going to lead to a very dark and gloomy society. And he kept pushing for those ideas. He had a very depressing life. He lived in utter poverty and stuff, and then he died. After he died, people in Russia took over his ideas, and they used it to set up the Russian Revolution. And then, like, Russia became a communist state. So Russia was already falling apart as an empire at that point. They didn't have like an economic model in mind. They didn't have a plan for the future. But Marx's ideas were so radical and revolutionary that it seized the imagination of a large number of young people, educated labor class people, who then created a movement. And like Lenin, Stalin, all those people like seized power based on the ideas that they read in Marx, and they
mm,
set up a communist empire.
mm,
So, like, as an influential economist, Marx is probably one of the most influential, because he changed the world order just by writing a theory. Like, he wasn't actively involved in
mm.
politics. One second.
Yeah.
He wasn't actively involved in politics at all.
Hmm.
But
I'm listening, dude.
uh, yeah, okay. The ideas that he wrote served as the basis for socialism and communism and things like that. And it
Mm,
ended up changing the entire Russian uh, landmass, and Russia became a dominant force in the global economy. It set up the Second World War. It set up the Cold War between Russia and the US and stuff like that. And Russia is still running, Russia and China are still running on communism. So, like an emotional political theory that Karl Marx wrote set the basis for like 2 centuries of policy for like the
mm,
most heavily populated countries in the world.
Hmm.
and it's affecting world politics. So that was Karl Marx. And then after Karl Marx, there were like a few philosophers. There was a guy called Veblen who talked about how when people like America became a country of great wealth, and like all these robber barons like Rockefeller, Carnegie, uh,
Hmm.
Vanderbilt, like all these
Hmm.
industrialists who were accumulating a lot of wealth, and he was
Hmm.
seeing people move away from utility to superficiality. Like basically, the society started becoming about display, show, luxury, and people showing off status.
Hmm.
So Veblen wrote theories about how economy moves from utility uh, to display at a certain point of time, how how it's likely to carry on from that, how
Is
the economy
vanity a
will.
better term? Utility versus
Yeah,
vanity or something?
yeah, utility versus vanity is a better term. So he
Okay.
also talked about how like the economy keeps moving towards a state of efficiency and like becoming a machine,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes less about innovation and creativity and like more about making an efficient machine in which you become cogs in the system. Like he had all these theories, and Veblen was like one of the most interesting and entertaining chapters to read in the book.
Hmm.
But I don't think it was very useful in like a practical sense to me.
Hmm.
And the last major philosopher in the book was this guy called John Maynard Keynes.
Hmm.
Keynes, I think it's pronounced Keynes.
Yeah.
He was an Englishman, and he worked during the Second World War, like First World War and Second World War. I think he was involved. So
Mm-hmm.
he was one of the most brilliant economists. He also used his knowledge to make money in the stock market and stuff like that. He wrote a lot of theories, and his major contribution was that sometimes, like one of the things that people in economics were trying to understand was why booms and busts happen. Like why do recessions happen? Why does inflation happen? Why does depression happen? Why does mania and the stock market happen? Why are there these cycles of booms and busts? And Karl
Hmm.
Marx had given an explanation for that. Other people had given explanations for that, but like nothing was really explaining how to deal with a recession when it happens and stuff. So Keynes was like, recession happens because people save too much money, and uh, like they save for a rainy day, but then like when production stops, they don't have anything to buy with that money, and then the flow of income stops for people. They have all this money sitting there, but then like the companies don't have any money to hire people with. There are no goods being produced, and the flow in the economy stops. Like the labor class is not buying goods, the labor class is also not being hired, and it enters like a period of stagnation, and that's what causes a recession. So like before that, people didn't know how to deal with such situations, and his idea was at such points government has to intervene in the market. Like
Hmm.
government has to act like it is an industry. A government has to act like an employer of people. It has to start all these uh, projects which give employment to people. Basically,
Hmm.
uh, like starting dam construction projects, road construction projects, school construction, hospital construction, and things like that. The government has to
Kind of
borrow
stimulate the
money,
economy, re-stimulate the
stimulate the
economy.
economy by borrowing from itself in the future. So he brought in this idea of deficit spending, which is
Okay.
taking on debt and you know uh, spending to stimulate the economy in the hope that in the future people will make up for that deficit. And
Hmm.
that idea and that set of theories was actually very revolutionary in that time. The US was entering the Great Depression, 1929 or so, and FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the president for 4 terms in America. He's like one of the most popular
How the
and
hell did you
controversial.
do 4 periods, dude? I thought 2 periods is the constitutional
Yeah,
rule or something.
they changed it after his rule.
It's like this
So
guy's doing it back to back. Let's change it, man. It's not stopping.
exactly. That's literally what they did. Like till then, nobody had managed to even win after 2 terms. So nobody bothered to like put a rule saying maximum 2 terms. And Roosevelt won first time, second time, third time, then fourth time, and then in fourth time he died in office. So he was paralyzed, and he was basically like, uh, okay, let's not get too political. Uh, he was like Roosevelt got paralyzed. He had a stroke, and then he died in office. Then Truman got elected. Truman was the guy who dropped bombs on Japan and ended the war.
Mm,
So Roosevelt got America into the war. He was largely responsible for America winning the war. He managed America's economy throughout the war and stuff.
mm,
He was a very popular president.
mm,
So Roosevelt implemented a lot of ideas like deficit spending, government entering industry, government providing employment, and all of those, even before Keynes had actually written the book. So, like, these two things are happening in parallel. Like, Roosevelt
mm,
was doing in practice what Keynes was writing in theory. And like the
mm,
two communicated and they consulted each other and they developed on each other's ideas. But they say that, like, a lot of people claim that Roosevelt taking all those drastic steps, like taking America off the gold standard, printing more money, pumping money into the system, starting all these public spending projects, all of that is what saved capitalism. All of that is what brought America out of the depression. Some others
mm.
argue that no, like Roosevelt shouldn't have done any of this. His job was just to sit and wait patiently, and like the economy would have corrected at some point. But there's no proof. That's the thing with economics, that you can't tell what was the right thing to do. In hindsight, people will be like, "This is what he should have done. This he did the right thing and saved the economy and all that." But you never know because the alternative, the counterfactual, is not present to
There's no A/B
compare.
testing happening.
No A/B testing happening exactly. But
Yeah.
Keynes was very influential. He brought all these ideas about unemployment, inflation, uh, monetary theory, and all of that, which are still being used by economics till today.
Mm,
He's like the guy who invented modern economics, like how to measure inflation, how to measure unemployment, like all the stats that we monitor today to understand how the economy is doing, were all studied and introduced into the mainstream by Keynes.
mm,
And after Keynes uh, died, there wasn't any major upheaval in economics. There were people who sort of contributed to the theories, modified the theories, made additions, deletions, and all of that. And that after that point, also like booms and busts did happen. So that is like one of
mm,
the criticism of Keynes. Like Keynes said, government intervention is necessary and all of that, and because of that, there were zero interest rates for a long time. And people say that led to the great financial crisis in 2007-8. And there was there are still stock market manias and stuff happening like during the dot-com bubble and stuff. This book ends somewhere around 1998 or something. The dot-com bubble happened in 1999. So the book doesn't cover the period of time which is relevant to us in some sense. Like we were born in 1995, and the dot-com bubble happened after that. The great financial crisis happened. The COVID pandemic happened. So our life has seen a lot of recessions and booms and busts, but the book doesn't really go into how those booms and busts were enabled. Uh, what is the economic world that we live in? How does monetary theory or how does money supply affect our life? What sort of policy should governments follow? What tariff policy should governments follow? Like these were things that I was interested in, which the book did not cover. It gave me a
Mm.
basic understanding of how economics got to where it is today. Who are the major economic philosophers? Adam Smith, Marx, Keynes, Veblen, and all of these people. And it was very interesting to read about. Okay, so Keynes believed this, but he believed this because this is what was happening around him at that time.
So it
This is
gave
the
you a historical account of the subject of economics in the world,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So because of that, I was able to understand it better. Like, why was Marx so radical and revolutionary? Why was he like go and kill the
Mm.
capitalists and stuff like that? It's because he was extremely poor and he was seeing so much poverty around him. He was seeing a lot of working class people like really suffering and stuff. So that is the sort of emotion that made its way into the theory that he wrote. And that's also why his theory resonated so well with all the labor class people who were struggling at that time, because he
Mm.
captured their sentiment. It was like watching a Rajnikant movie when you are in Rajnikant's situation. So
Mm.
uh, basically, like the historical context played a big role in how these economic theories entered the mainstream. Uh, and it was very fun book to read. Like it had some really good writing.
It's called the Worldly Wisdom, is it?
The Worldly Philosophers.
The Worldly Philosophers. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Okay.
the writing was great. It had a lot of great anecdotes. Uh, like these people were really interesting to read about, like the economists and philosophers who were covered in the book. They were very quirky and eccentric characters as well, many times. So just to read about their lives and life stories was also quite fun.
Hmm.
And yeah, enjoyed reading the book. It took me about 15 hours, 16 hours to read in total over 2, 3 weeks.
Was that a physical book or you did it on Kindle?
Kindle, sub Kindle. Yeah, I
Nice.
have some physical books, but this one was Kindle.
Hmm. It's convenient on Kindle.
Yeah.
I had a question, dude, actually, about general reading and stuff, right? You read this book, you have some way of thinking about the history of economics and the important personalities and why certain events happened because the author narrated in like some
Mm,
events and stuff, right? Like, and it's possible that some of the narration, some of the chapters, or some w- whatever thoughts we put there, they could. I mean, not everything could be a fact, right? Something could be just an interpretation or his perspective of what was
mm,
happening. So now, how do you go about forming your model of the world um, when you are reading books, when you know that you cannot go and verify each and everything, right?
mm.
You are trying to form a model based on someone else's writing, someone else's speeches, um, right? Overall, their perspective, some of it could be correct, some of it could be wrong. So have you thought about this?
Yeah, of course. Very correctly, you asked that one question. Yeah, so this is something I thought about before reading the book, while reading the book. Generally, I have a tendency to be completionist when it comes to reading or doing any activity, which is I
So
want to hit 100.
you never heard of sunk cost fallacy and all. Like, screw sunk
Mm,
cost. Okay,
yeah.
now complete
So,
this shit.
so it's like not only that, like not just complete the book, it's more like I want to get 100% out of whatever I'm doing, or I want to verify each and every fact. I want to learn more about every part of it and stuff like that. And that's a tendency which I feel wastes a lot of time in my life in general, because
Hmm.
a lot of these things are shiny objects, and like I follow them and I go into these rabbit holes, which are interesting in the moment, but they don't add any value to my overall objectives or priorities in any sense.
They don't serve
Like it's
any purpose or something.
yeah, any bigger purpose. Like they are good to know as trivia. I might come across as smart when I talk to people,
Mm.
but it's just a
You're also
party
wearing the
trick.
glasses, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's a party trick in some sense, because like you can impress people with facts and stuff, or like saying, hey, the book said this, but then I thought, what if it was like this, and then I went and explored it and it was actually like that. But if it's not relevant to the other person, or if it's not serving any purpose in your life, like it's just pointless flexing. There's no deeper value added because of that. And I have this habit of taking a lot of notes, making
Mm.
highlights and stuff like that, which was also like I rarely revisit my notes and highlights. It's just a waste of time.
Story of every person that's taking notes,
Yeah.
man.
So with this book, I wanted to do something very different, which was
Mm.
I read the book without taking any notes, without making any
Mm.
highlights.
Mm.
I consciously like decided not to do that. And I just trusted that if there is anything important for me to remember, like I'll end up remembering it, which I feel is what happened now. Like the most prominent parts of the book are what I remembered, or like what is relevant to me are the main parts that came up in our conversation. And I
Mm.
think that's good enough. But also like the part where you say like how do you verify whether whatever the author is saying is true? Is he bringing in his own biases and stuff like that? To deal with that, I was having conversations with ChatGPT. Like if you mentioned something like, hey, before 16th century there was no land, labor, and capital, I asked that question to ChatGPT. Like this book claims that before 16th century there was no land, labor, and capital. Was it so clean? Like was it like before 16th century nobody ever thought of trading on the free market? What about in other parts of the world? What is happening in China? What is happening in India? What is happening in Japan? Uh, did nobody ever think of capitalism? Or was it like a technological thing? Did we not have the technology to have the free market before the 16th or 17th century? And if he said something about Adam Smith or Karl Marx and I didn't understand it, or if I had doubts about is he just bringing in his own biases here, I would go and ask ChatGPT again. Like the book is saying so and so thing, and like I'd upload a screenshot of that page and be like, okay, he's saying this here, but is it actually true? Because this is not what I've heard, or this doesn't make sense, or something like that. And ChatGPT would add more context. Sometimes it would say, yeah, he's oversimplifying it. Sometimes it would be
Mm.
like, yeah, like what he's saying is true in this current context, but it's not true in all contexts. And it would explain more. And I think that just questioning and exploring that uh, those questions as they arose was helpful. But I
Mm.
didn't try to take notes after that. I didn't try to be like, okay, I clarified this. Now I have to synthesize it and write something about it, or I have to take notes. I have to revisit it later. So I just made it a point to think critically as I was reading the book. If I felt like a particular chapter needed much more time compared to the other ones, I would give it that time. If I felt like the chapter was just like light reading and there wasn't much substance or it wasn't relevant to me, I would just like read it and keep reading.
Mm.
So I spent a lot of time on the Adam Smith chapter, the Keynes chapter,
Mm.
and the Karl Marx chapter. But there were many chapters which I just read through. There was one called The Utopian Socialists. We just talked about people who had this utopian worldview, like everybody can live equal life, all people can have like an egalitarian life and all of that. It was interesting to read, but I didn't find it relevant to what I was trying to learn. So I just read
Mm.
through the chapter. I didn't verify much about like the people in the chapter and all of that. Uh, and yeah, I'm just trying to develop a judgment for when to think critically, when to question the facts, when to go deeper into stuff, and when to just keep reading. Because like I'm also comfortable with abandoning books sometimes. Like if I'm reading through a book and I feel like I've gotten most of what I need to get, I just leave the book and like move on. With
Mm.
this book, I felt like it was worth reading till the end. So I continued till the end.
Oh, nice. So it's so you've read, you've paused and done some research whenever you felt like, okay, I need to check these facts, right? Cross-check, think critically about it, and you have kind of formed an understanding of
Hmm.
the world, or maybe from the timeline that was described about the timeline that was described in the book, right?
Yeah.
Um, so how do you find, like, now, since you recently read it, you have this fresh memory of the read of the book and the understanding. How do you think you are going to sort of internalize this knowledge or use this knowledge, whatever you found out? I would say use this knowledge to gain an understanding that's much deeper,
Hmm.
to help you um, with your, uh, I don't know, other knowledge pursuits, right? I'm
Hmm.
asking all these questions about memory, knowledge, understanding because this ties closely with what I'm exploring right now and constantly. It's about epistemology, and the book that I'm reading, The Beginning of Infinity, is also kind of about uh, something related to humans acquiring knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and getting better at harvesting the nature around them.
Right. So, mm,
You got the question, or you want me to repeat it?
no, I got the question. I'm just thinking about
Yeah, yeah. You can say, don't say think. Oh, yeah, thinking or reasoning. Yeah. ChatGPT is also using the same terms, thinking. And we are satisfied. Yeah, this ChatGPT is thinking.
So
Let
I
me
didn't
read that.
learn thinking from ChatGPT, bro. Thinking is basic human activity.
No, no, I'm just joking, dude.
But
Instead of
thinking
saying
is, yeah,
loading,
yeah. I saw in ChatGPT also thinking. Yeah,
no, no.
it's a
Instead
really
of
complex.
loading, they are using thinking or reasoning or analyzing. Those are the terms.
Yeah. So, so one thing is I don't want to retain all of the knowledge that I read uh, necessarily. Like I read this book, I got some value out of it. It
Hmm.
brought up certain questions, and I think the most valuable experience or uh, outcome that I got out of reading the book was getting some clarity on which things actually interest and excite me in the book.
Hmm.
Like while reading the book, some parts appealed to me more, some parts were not as interesting, and some questions came up in my mind which were not answered by the book. Like I wanted to know how monetary theory and monetary policy influence the economic system. I wanted to know how the great financial crisis happened. So these
Hmm.
questions were not addressed in the book, and they gave me questions which I could explore elsewhere, like what other books address this. I had conversations with ChatGPT, like, hey, I want to know about this, and this was not addressed in the book. Can you tell me more about it and stuff like that? So I feel like that was the main alignment exercise that I got out of the book, where the book showed me what was important to me. Like I had a vague understanding of why I picked up the book when I picked it up, but once I finished the book, I understood with much more clarity what interested me about economics. Why did I pick up the book in the first place? What more do I want to learn, and in what direction do I want to go? Like there were a lot of references and further reading materials given at the end of the book, and I'm pretty sure I won't read 99% of them because it was a huge list. But I think the book also told me what I wanted to learn more about. So I'm not going to pursue or remember 90% of what I read, but there will be like 10% of stuff that I will learn more deeply about. And the stuff that I
Hmm.
retain won't be the stuff that I read, but it'll be the stuff that I reread and explore and question continuously and like look at from multiple angles. So if you ask like how am I going to retain stuff, I think this is something I've told you before, and this
I haven't
is like
retained that.
maybe part of my operating system as well, like how I look at the world, which is if I solve a problem, I don't want to like stop at solving the problem. I want to look at it from other angles as well. Is it possible to solve the same problem in a different way? Is it possible to look at the same problem through a different lens? Like if I
Mm,
look at the problem through the lens of technology, can I look at it through the problem, like the lens of psychology? Can I look at it through the problem, sorry, the lens of history? Can I look at it through the lens of culture? Like, if I, for example, this fascinates me a lot, like the great financial crisis, why the market crashed in 2007 to 8. I
mm,
watched the movie The Big Short in 2007 to 8. Sorry, the crash happened in 2017. I watched the movie in 2015, 2016,
mm,
and I didn't really understand the movie at that point. Like, I knew
mm,
nothing about the market. I didn't know anything about how the economy worked.
mm,
But it gave me so many questions to follow, and I started
mm,
learning more about the stock market. And I watched the movie, say, 2 or 3 times after that. I watched it recently as well. After reading the Worldly Philosophers, I have a better understanding of some aspects of that movie. But now,
mm,
like, I also have more clarity about, yeah, like understanding how financial markets work, understanding how the investment world works, understanding how money flows between countries. This is my main interest in reading about economics. My main interest is not in reading about unemployment and inflation and uh, GDP per
mm,
capita, things like that. Like there are so many different areas in economics to study about. But what interests me is the financial markets part of it.
mm,
And maybe that means like the most relevant part to me is reading more of Adam Smith. Maybe it's like reading more of Veblen, reading a little bit of Keynes, understanding his theory on how government should do deficit spending, how money exchange happens between countries, how treasury bills work, and all of that. So when I read those things, I will again stumble upon concepts that I read in this book, and my memory will be refreshed, and those concepts will get strengthened. If they don't get strengthened, like if I forget 90% of the book, it's still okay. I feel like in some vague form, they will be present in my mind in the form of familiarity. And when I read
mm.
something related to it in the future, I will find that new thing easier to understand rather than starting from scratch. But it's not necessary for me to memorize and retain every single thing. Like,
Touche.
not too shit. I was just reminded of our college days. So, like what we learned in compressive sampling and wavelet theory. Bro, do you remember any of that shit?
I remember, dude, that was, oh my God. Dude,
Yeah.
I think 90% of what we read, what we listen to,
Father, father, you might come up with some very good insights. Like
yeah,
that's all I
it won't
remember from the
stick with
class.
us, and
I don't
it's
even
fine.
remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember any concept that he taught, but I remember all of Abhilash sir's mannerisms, how he taught about functions, how he was like Madhav. You might have some brilliant insights and stuff. But yeah, maybe that's what was important for me. Maybe acting and mimicry was my thing, as opposed to
Maybe.
Violet. Yeah.
Nice. Nice, dude. Yeah, that was a good answer, good response for me. It made me kind of be okay, be at ease with the fact that we necessarily don't have to retain everything in the memory, and it's fine even if we forget, even if we uh, like let's say we feel that we understood something, and like 2 years down the
Hmm.
line, yeah, like dude, I understood this thing back then, but now it's all lost. It's fine
Hmm.
because yeah, it's our brains cannot hold all the things. It's like the one that's most frequently used, that or most frequently needed in your daily life is what will be available for easy retrieval, right? Like if you're not using that knowledge or that memory, then the natural um, process is to flush it out of the system, right? Because
Yeah.
there's limits on how much you can hold uh, in your memory.
Hmm.
So kind of so is to summarize your answer, kind of spaced retrieval combined with forming a web of knowledge
Hmm.
um, by looking at it from different angles and maybe questioning and trying to form a model, and eventually that will model of your knowledge, and eventually leading to an understanding, sort of an internalization of uh, model of the reality from that specific lens, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, good, nice,
Let's
cool.
go on to your book, bro.
Yeah, so the book that I started is titled The Beginning of Infinity. Actually, before we go there, I wanted to quickly talk about set the context, right? Even if we look back at this later, this video, or we publish it somewhere, we want to know why we are doing this and what is this. This is basically, we started out with the intention that we want to read books and share knowledge with each other, and maybe uh, ask questions and realize that okay, I don't know, we have some gaps in our knowledge, or we're learning something new from the other person. So it helps keep that thirst for knowledge alive and learn from each other. Purpose is to, yeah, just discuss the books we read, kind of like a book club. Um, and why we're doing this, again, we like to know new things. We are curious people, uh, trying to get smart. And we'll try to do this every month or so, or depend. Like we can start out uh, with realistic
Yeah.
expectation of monthly ones and see how it
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, cool. Thanks for the detailed and well articulated response on what you read. Let me try to
Hmm.
attempt what I read. And I didn't read much, okay?
Any
It's a
questions?
dense
Any
book.
concerns?
It's a dense book with
Hmm.
a lot of I don't know, deep core ideas about knowledge and stuff. The book is
Hmm.
called The Beginning of Infinity, and the author is David Deutsch. He is, I think, quantum physicist, or he's a physicist working in the quantum mechanics field, I guess. I got this book recommendation from Nawal Ravikant. He did a huge video podcast, audio podcast, and he keeps mentioning David Deutsch as an influential author who kind of transformed his way of thinking about life and humans and stuff. So
Hmm.
the core idea of this book is that there is no uh, limits to how much humans can learn, can know about the universe. Um, Humans can keep discovering knowledge about the world, about the universe around them, uh, through conjectures, through speculations, slash theories. And he tells that um, you the minute you stop just believing stuff and start questioning things in a scientific way is when you will see that unbounded growth of knowledge. And um, what people should be looking for in the realm of science is uh, an explanation for how things are working. Uh,
Hmm.
and he talks about um, you accept an explanation as long as it explains the reality, right?
Hmm.
Whatever you perceive, whatever you experience. And there could be thousand explanations, but there will be one explanation which satisfies the
Hmm.
reality experienced by different people the across the world in different times and spaces. But when there is a reality which is not being explained by that explanation that's prevailing so far, then you can discard that explanation because it's no longer the truth, or it's no longer an accurate model of reality, right?
Hmm.
And he also talks about, on a high level, uh, the the core principle of science is something called not science. What is it called? epistemology, the theory of knowledge and how you gain, right? The core principle is
mm,
something called correction of error, because
mm,
there is no absolute truth. You start out with a conjecture till it's proven false. So once it's proven false, you are trying to correct it, right? You're forming another explanation, and you hold on to that till there is another falsification of that. Yeah, falsification. That's another thing. Uh,
mm,
Theories that are falsifiable are more scientific versus something that is not falsifiable. Bible meaning testable.
mm.
Um, so this is kind of what I remember from reading it. Let me see from my notes if there is anything else that was interesting from the first chapter. Um, Explanations. Yeah, he talks about something called rational optimism, which is something that a lot of that he holds because he believes that the world is knowable, the world is understandable
Mm,
through knowledge and through explorations. So
mm,
whatever the problem is, there's going to be problems. What is a problem? A problem is something that uh, when there is a conflict or when you want to achieve something you cannot achieve um, with whatever means you have, with whatever models you have. You want to come up with some new ways of thinking to create new resources using your
mm,
knowledge to solve that problem, to achieve whatever goal you want, right? So, um, yeah, he says like be rational, be optimistic. Every problem is solvable, and believe in uh, explanations, and try to get yourself closer to the right explanations and understanding explanations versus just blindly accepting stuff. Okay. This is on a high level, chapter one and three phase of the book. Um, and that's all I have. But we can talk about it if
yeah.
you have any
What
tangents or
made you
any.
pick up the book?
Um, because I just got more and more curious about um what are humans and like how did they become to be the most powerful beings on earth? Like what
Mm,
led to the rise of humans to this level, right? Like we like out of all the species of all living things, we are living comfortably in buildings with internet technology, with electricity, with um I don't know, clothes and stuff, everything, right? Electronics. We are launching rockets to the space, all this. Like, how did we reach to this point? Then I was like, okay, we can think, and thinking, and we are conscious about our thinking. We are aware of our surroundings. We can transform one thing into another. We can take iron and make an axe out of it, make a crowbar out of it. We can take some cotton, grow plants, make cotton from that, make clothes to keep ourselves warm, to keep ourselves comfortable. So it all boils down to thoughts, right? It all
mm,
boils down to how we can use our thinking power to form a model of the reality, and using that model, uh, we, we change the nature around us. We take
mm,
some naturally occurring resource and transform it into another resource and transform it. Keep doing, right? Multiple transformations. So human beings are basically knowledge. They thrive. They can go against even apex predators because of this power of
mm,
knowledge. So like, how do we gain this? Like, what exactly is this? Then I discovered as I was watching some YouTube videos and stuff. I used to follow Naval a lot for a long time because of his philosophical take on life combined with his scientific kind of lens.
mm,
Then he kept talking about David Deutsch. I'm like, okay, let me read about David Deutsch. Then about this book came upon. I was like, oh, this is interesting. What is this beginning of infinity? What does he mean by epistemology? All these things. But um, I'm a very slowly a reader, so. I'm like, okay, it's fine if I'm slow, but I'll just keep reading it and try to relate to my life
Hmm.
work as I'm reading through it and try to connect stuff. So yeah, and that's how it came to be.
Hmm. Have you like felt the influence of this book on your life in any way? Because you say it's about epistemology and the theory of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And it's coming up with all these theories about falsifiability.
Hmm.
Is there some audio in the background?
Yeah. There's a TV playing. Is it too loud?
Okay, little.
Okay, let me increase the noise isolation.
Mm,
Transparency and noise cancellation. You feel the power of Apple AirPods. How about now, though? Is it canceling all the noise? It's supposed to do it because I click noise cancellation.
it's okay. It's okay. Yeah,
It's better or no?
yeah, it's better.
Hmm.
So, what I was saying is
Yeah,
the book is about
the
epistemology
any
and
impact on
knowledge.
my life.
Any impact on your life? Because you said that it talks about falsifiability and it talks about what is that? Forming a model where error correction is possible and stuff like that. So, when you read about these theories, were there any anecdotes in the book illustrating these theories? And did you start relating them with your life in any way? Like, did you form
Yeah.
falsify any like small falsifiable model, or did you apply error correction in any form? Like, did it seep into your life in any way?
I think the more I think about it, just the understanding that we are fallible, uh, and the fact that everything boils down to understanding that
Hmm.
uh, made me less anxious about not knowing stuff, and made me more optimistic uh, that um, it is possible to acquire knowledge and understanding
Hmm.
if we put our focus and attention towards understanding it versus having this fixed mindset that, oh man, like this is stuff like, oh shit, like I ran into this roadblock and I cannot move forward. It's how it like it seems impossible. Versus now I'm like, okay, uh, I first uh, set the context that it is possible,
Hmm.
it is understandable, and I don't have to be getting it. There's no such thing as like absolute perfection or absolute truth. I'll start somewhere and iterate on the process of correction of error. So basically, rational optimism, correction of error. When I try to work on a project or write a design document or code something, right?
Hmm.
I'm more at ease and um, able to able to think better. For example, the other day I was working on this feature which was designed with some major flaws which would not address some corner cases, right?
Hmm.
And usually, when you are asked to work on something which is already implemented and you're taking up that work, you're like, okay, it's already there, right? It's more like uh, what's the term? Convergent way of thinking, where you you proceed from where you picked it up and you proceed with where you picked it up, right? And you don't have a habit, or at least I did not have a habit of stepping back and questioning the whole,
Hmm.
like, questioning what is this like, why did we do it this way, so that kind of thing. So when I received the feature, I was like, for the first 3 4 days I was just trying to proceed with whatever the existing design was, and I was running into all these roadblocks where I it was very confusing, and I felt something was off and I was doing some sort of band-aid fixes. Then I just took a pause and I'm like, okay, let me try to understand. Let me question this, because most of the time we don't even question stuff. Like, why are we doing it this way? What is the purpose of this component or of this feature? Then I understood that, okay, this is the purpose of it. So I put aside the existing design, and I tried to think sort of in fourth principles way, driven by the purpose of the requirements of the component. Then I was
Hmm.
like, why we can do it in a different way, right?
Hmm.
Versus this. So that helped me kind of redesign the whole thing, which will serve its purpose. I discussed that with the team, and they were like, yeah, dude, this is a better design. I don't know why we didn't catch this stuff, right? Just like on a high level, taking a step back,
Hmm.
trying to see the bigger picture, trying to understand what is the purpose of whatever
Hmm.
we're doing, right? So those kind of things, and like being at ease and knowing that it's possible to understand, it's possible to solve problems. Every problem can be solved, right? That firm belief, it just became more firm and made me uh, think better, I would say.
Hmm. Interesting, bro. And
Yeah.
what are the upcoming chapters? Like, where do you see this going? Like, the first book's
Yeah.
about first chapter is about falsifiability. Why is the book called The Beginning of Infinity?
Great question.
I thought it's going to be about mathematics. Like, I really had no idea about this.
Great question. Yeah, even I was questioning, like, dude, why is it called the beginning of infinity? Because um, it's more about um, the minute you start questioning and the minute you understand that it's an error correction mechanism. There's no
Hmm.
end to how much knowledge you can acquire. There's no end to how many resources you can produce out of the existing resources, how much we can achieve. So it's
Hmm.
basically saying that once you understand um, the theory of knowledge, epistemology, right? It's
Sky's the
the
limit.
beginning of, yeah, it's sky's the limit. It's the beginning of infinity. That's where it starts. And that was
Hmm.
very well put, I felt. That was very inspiring to see the meaning behind the title.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Now
So,
I'm
and
interested in the book. I thought it was about mathematics and how they invented the concept of infinity and stuff like that. I was like, this book has
oh
I must
shit.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, it's interesting, dude, in the sense that I'm usually interested in philosophy. So
Hmm.
this is like a scientific take on I mean, I think back in the days, philosophy and science were deeply intertwined.
Hmm.
During Aristotle, Greek, those ages where philosophers were mostly supposed to be scientists, right?
Hmm.
Um, they Yeah. So anyway, I just like to learn more about life and understand um why, what, those kind of big questions. So this book, I feel, helps me form a model. What are the next chapters? Let me wait. Are you reading about the book and all now?
No, no. I'm just looking at your face.
Yeah. Uh, the next chapters are introduction. So the first chapter is about the reach of explanations. Right?
Hmm.
Explanations can reach infinity. Right? Like you
Hmm.
can have one good explanation that explains a lot of phenomena, not just bounded to earthly phenomena, but
No
also
one does so many like that. Only one.
only one.
Pasak.
Yes, yes, it can apply to anywhere
Uh,
in the universe, right? So it's
okay.
basically explanations can reach very far if you have a very good explanation. Then second
Hmm.
chapter is about closer to reality, the spark. Then we have creation. I don't know. There's a lot of things. Optimism, dream of Socrates, multiverse.
Hmm.
Why are flowers beautiful? There's a chapter on why flowers are beautiful, man. Evolution of culture, evolution of creativity, unsustainable. Then the final chapter is called the beginning. It's like, dude, this is where the beginning is.
Loops it. Loops
Yep,
it back to the start.
yep, yep, yep.
The Christopher Nolan level non-fiction
Yeah,
writing.
yep, yep,
Hmm.
bro. So yeah, I would say is give it a read. It's an interesting book, which I plan to have it like as a yeah. I'm reading every days a bit whenever I get time a bit and trying to process relate to the external world, my life and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
And there's also a freaking podcast where a guy dedicated his entire life to read books by David Deutsch and
Oh,
just analyze each chapter.
oh,
It's called TokCast, or Talk
okay.
Meaning Theory of Knowledge. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
TOK. Okay.
TOK, TokCast. So
Mm,
it's on
okay.
Spotify, and each episode is, I think, 1 hour 40 minutes. He goes into he like he's just talking
We are
about
not
each.
sponsored by TokCast. I didn't even hear about TokCast till now. Disclaimer for all the audience,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
our audience and you, the
yeah.
two people who watch, you and me.
You never know, dude.
Yeah,
This might turn into a big thing. After a few
yeah.
episodes, we're like, damn. A lot of common people would be relating to us. They'd be like, okay, these guys are just like us. They're trying to talk about
Hmm,
normal topics,
hmm,
questions that everyone has, but it's just, um, I don't know. They might be interested in listening to us just talk.
hmm. Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Uh, I was also thinking like maybe you could talk to ChatGPT or Gemini about the questions that come up in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I can give you an example about one question that I asked. So when I was reading the Worldly Philosophers, there was this theory called opportunity cost and comparative advantage. So comparative advantage is
You know.
this idea that uh, different people or different countries are better at doing different things. So
Yep.
even if one country is the best at doing everything, it is better off if it does what it's best at, like the one thing which gives it the most advantage, and outsources everything to the other countries. So maybe say there's in America and there's India,
Mm.
and America is better than India at technology, science, agriculture, uh, manufacturing, sales, like literally every content writing, everything. But suppose America gets the most value at technology
Mm.
and manufacturing. So
Mm.
then America should just focus on these two things
Mm.
and outsource the rest of the things to India or like to other countries.
Mm.
Even if America is better at content writing than India,
Mm.
America will get more value at technology than in content writing.
Yeah.
So it should spend more time on technology and outsource the
Because there's
content writing to
opportunity cost. Because if you're spending time on
exactly.
that, then you're losing out your time, which you could have spent on the thing that you're the best at.
Exactly. You are an economist, bro. You
I'm
just
thinking like
got
an
it.
economist. You know why? Because
Yeah.
I I listened to this podcast called Think Like an Economist, where they talk about each of these economic principles with
Okay,
real
so
life examples. So Curiosity Chronicle, man. Now it's a bug.
yeah. Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
And
question I asked ChatGPT was,
yeah.
sorry, like, let me just complete this. The
Yeah.
question I asked was, I was thinking about comparative advantage and opportunity cost. Won't these ideas be relevant to any entities that have constraints on the optimal usage of resources and time? So the book talks about these concepts in the context of countries, but
Mm.
what about the context of individuals cooperating with each other inside a company? And what about companies interacting with each other in an economy? So the idea was sparked in me by seeing rivals like Meta, Google, Nvidia, AMD, etc., all trade amongst each other in the AI boom. They are making deals almost like mini countries. Is there a theory of intercorporation politics and power, like there is international politics, considering that corporations are such powerful forces now? Also, a single individual who has to decide how to make the best use of his time and divide his energy among the different facets of himself has to use some form of comparative advantage to decide the optimal mix. What is he optimizing for in this case? So I might be taking the analogy too far. Help me understand in which context the Ricardo's model is actually useful. So this is one question I asked while reading the book.
Mm.
Like I was reading about comparative advantage and opportunity cost, David Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage. And this thought came up in me, like he's talking about countries. He's talking about countries dealing with each other and forming deals, optimizing for opportunity cost. But you can apply the same concept to human beings. Like
Mm,
I can form deals with other people. I can form teams within companies. I can uh, form deals within myself. Like I might be good at four different things, but the opportunity cost might be high. So I need to optimize for one thing that gives me the best outcome, depending on whatever outcome I want. And there are companies competing with each other, like Meta and Google and Nvidia and all these companies, and they are technically rivals in the AI space, but still they are making deals with each other because
mm,
Meta has given up on, like Meta has realized it's not going to catch up with Google when it comes to LLM proficiency. So it's like we'll just borrow the LLMs from Google, we'll just borrow the chips from Google. We will focus on our strength, which is designing and UX and making things that people feel comfortable interacting with. So
mm,
they are optimizing for their opportunity cost in that sense. And Microsoft might be like a rival with Google in some sense, but it'll form a deal with Google. Or Microsoft might hedge its bets by forming deals with multiple companies in the AI space. So, like, can you apply the Ricardo's theory of opportunity cost in other contexts, like individuals, companies, and stuff like that? Though he thought about it for countries. So I'm saying, like, maybe when you read, this could be
mm.
something interesting to try out, where you ask your questions with ChatGPT and try to go deeper into the things that interest you. So when I learned about this and I was going deeper into this, I realized I like game theory. I like understanding how agents interact, how companies interact, and all of that. So I might read more on that. It showed me where my interests lay. So the same thing could happen for you.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I do use ChatGPT and these chat agents from time to time. Um, but I've lately realized that maybe I'm over relying on them for even basic questions. So I kind of I'm trying to use my brain a bit, use some critical thinking before I ask you like basic questions, right? Like why do I need to ask you
Mm,
basic questions? Sometimes just for the purposes of curiosity, to check how I'm thinking versus how the world is thinking. I'd ask basic questions. But otherwise, I'm usually asking something where uh, I really don't have an answer or don't have a model, or maybe I
mm,
want to improve uh, in that domain or subject. But on a side note, I wanted to ask about the very it's a meta question. How do you ask meta questions, right? Have you
mm.
thought about
Uh,
it?
Define meta question. Like, what are you? What do you mean by meta question?
I mean, the question is how to ask questions, right? How, how to ask better questions because there's like 100 questions I can ask,
Mm,
right? There's like 100 theories people can form, but it's a lot of noise. There's one good theory, there's like few good theories, right? Which will kind of help you get closer to the reality. Like
mm.
similarly, out of the 100 questions, there would be like two or three really good
So when you
questions.
say a good meta question, do you mean something that
No, I just
like,
said the fact that I am
uh,
asking a question about how to ask right question, that was a meta
okay.
question. But like the question
Mm,
itself is like how to ask better questions. That's
mm.
what I'm trying to
So meta
discuss.
meta question.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
recently I stumbled upon that and because one right question can really determine the direction in which the conversation goes, the direction in which you take the next step. And it's more like um, effectiveness versus efficiency, right? You gotta
Mm,
be effective, not just efficient, right? Effectiveness matters. It matters what problems you're working on, who you're working with, a lot more than how hard you're working. You might be
yeah,
working on the wrong problem really hard 24 hours. You might be an auto rickshaw driver working 24 hours a day, but it's unless you're enjoying doing that, right? It
yeah.
doesn't. It's not a great thing. Yeah, I'm still learning. I just put it out there just to see if you have any opinion or if you ever thought about it.
about how to ask good questions.
Yes. How do you have a
How to,
framework for asking?
so like what I'm practicing of late is I'm like since I stopped taking notes and highlights, I don't chase every thought or every question that comes to my mind. So earlier I used to reach for Google or for the phone, uh, and maybe to chat GPT and try to find out the answer to every question that comes up in my mind. Now I just sit with the question for a while. So if the question isn't important, after a while it seems less important. Uh, if I forget the question, then it means it's probably not that important in the first place. But if the question sticks with me for a certain time, like I can't stop thinking about it, it keeps branching off and like giving more questions, or it gets refined into like a more specific question, something which I can take action about, and uh, like I see how exactly it relates with my life. So I get more and more emotional about it. That's probably a good question to pursue. So if a question sticks with me for more than a day, for a few days, then I
Mm.
try exploring it further. And I'm trying to let go of the anxiety of, hey, I need to
FOMO or
know
something?
everything. Yeah, FOMO when it comes to like knowledge,
Mm.
uh, fear of not knowing, FONK. Yeah. So basically, uh, if you want to filter out for good questions, I think one way to start is by letting your mind do the filtering. Like if your mind is not retaining the question for more than 24 hours, how important can the question be? I feel like
Mm.
the most important questions are the ones that linger in your mind, that because there is something in your environment or something in your life, something in your life situation that keeps bringing up that question again and again. Like, how do I do this? How do I do this better? How do I improve upon this? Or uh, I have this particular problem. How do I solve it? And it keeps coming up. But if some question comes up like in a particular context, like you saw something on Instagram and it brought up a question in your mind, and after you scrolled away, that question vanishes, then maybe that question was just a momentary response. It's a novelty, but it's not a very important question in that sense.
Mm.
Uh, and like there's always the doubt in your mind about, oh, like what if like some question that came out of a novelty holds a lot of potential, and what if that was the secret that I needed to change my life? What if that will give me some epiphany, some clarity on some misunderstood part of my life and all that? But I have realized that mostly that doesn't happen. Like the false positives are much higher than the false negatives. Like when I chase all the shiny objects, it's very rare that I've actually gotten something life changing out of that. Whereas if I let go of all the shiny objects, the chance that I actually missed out on something life changing is very, very small. There's a much higher hit rate when you let questions linger in your mind and start forming a web in your mind of like connected questions. Like there will be
Mm.
one question that seems important, and then something else will pop up, and like they all start forming a framework. So then you identify the linchpin question that you can solve to like get an entry into that web in a much better way if you
Mm.
wait for some time. So patience, I think, being willing to wait with a, like you should be able to sit with a question without answering it, but
Mm.
that doesn't mean you forget it. It's like
Mm.
letting the question linger in your mind for a while. That's my filter currently for asking better questions.
Mm.
Like some questions are just like very open-ended and relevant to your life. For example, I'm doing growth consultancy for people. I'm growing personal brands for people, and I'm helping my friend grow a product, a technology product. So that the most important question on my mind always at all times is, how do I grow this product? How do I find more users for it? How do I make this product more useful that people will find value in it and share it with other people, that they will revisit the product. So
Mm.
if you immediately try to answer this, if you ask ChatGPT, it will give you some answer. And just thinking about the answer will give you like the false feeling of satisfaction. Like, oh yeah, now I know. Now I know what makes a good product. Now I know how to solve it. But if you sit with this question for a long time, your question will get more specific. You will relate it to your particular context, the product that you're building. You will think about what exact features are the, you got to go.
No, no, no.
You got to think about the exact features that your product is providing, the value that your product is providing, the exact friction points that your product is creating. So your questions will get more specific, like how do I remove this friction point? How do I make people revisit the product for this particular USP and all of that?
Hello.
And I think you start making better questions in that sense.
Mm. Good, good idea. Mm.
Hmm.
Okay, on that note, you want to end the podcast, or do you
Yeah,
want to talk about some ending closing notes?
yeah, I think we'll do vote of thanks. Uh,
I'd like to thank
it's
Google Meet for being the
yeah,
technology support partner. They're
and
not paying
Gemini
us,
for
nor
being
are
a transcript partner.
yes. Very grateful for the AI, generative AI technologies,
Hmm.
and
Thanks to
all
Akshay
the
Kalpa Milk for providing nutrition during the podcast. And what else? I think it's a great start. We should just keep going. Maybe try to
yes,
do this once a month, not put too much pressure on it.
yes.
We can think about what book to talk about next. So there are two books which I'm reading currently. I recently finished Zero to One by Peter Thiel. It's a
Mm-hmm.
great book. I highly recommend it to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But like currently, I'm reading two books. One is a book called Hooked by Nir Eyal. He was a product manager in Facebook, I think, early stage. And the book is about how to create habit forming products, like products that people love to use and like revisit. So it's a very interesting book. I'm like halfway through it. Uh, and I want to talk about it mainly because talking about the principles might help me see things in a new way, or like help me retain the ideas that I learned in the book better. There are a lot of ideas in the book. I think a lot of people who are into building products, who are into growth, marketing, and all will find the book very useful. And the other book I've just started is The Founders by Jimmy Soni. So it's the biography of the PayPal mafia, the founders of PayPal. And it's fascinating. Like I never knew this, but the people who started PayPal went on to create so many amazing companies. It includes Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, obviously. They are the most famous, but there's also Reid Hoffman who started LinkedIn. The founder of YouTube was also like part of the PayPal team. The founders of Yammer, Yelp, like I think Yelp, I'm not sure, but Yammer and many other companies, like a lot of dominant companies in Silicon Valley came from that team of 8 to 10 people who started PayPal. And it's apparently like a very big roller coaster story. Uh, it's I'm very interested in it because I want to understand what it takes to build a great team. How do you bring a great culture, a team of like high achieving people, highly motivated people together to build something amazing? Uh, that was the impetus for me to pick up that book. And I was very impressed with Zero to One by Peter Thiel. Like there were a lot of life changing ideas. I think it'll go well with the beginning of Infinity because the book has a lot of emphasis on asking good questions. Like, what is one truth that you believe in that nobody else believes? What is the one business, valuable business that nobody else is building? Like, those questions are related. Like, if you believe that you know something that other people don't, that's a secret that you can use to build a great business. And he believes that most people are creating businesses with incremental value,
Mm,
like small changes and stuff, but like the real value is created by doing something completely different and doing fundamentally great things, which might go well with the beginning of infinity.
mm,
So I was impressed with a lot of Peter Thiel's ideas, and I wanted to know more about how he started PayPal, how he came up as a person, what are his philosophies, and all of that. So that's one reason I picked up the founders. So
mm,
I'll keep reading both books, and depending on where we are next month, we
mm.
can catch up and talk about one of these books. And
Thank you, Aditya. Is that all, or are you going to say something more? I
why
had a
go? You
follow-up.
already
That's why.
shut up, huh? Yeah.
No, no.
Okay.
I just wanted to, for the
Hmm.
benefit of me and the audience,
Hmm.
since you are an avid reader and you
Uh,
inculcated the habit of reading and retaining knowledge and explaining and writing and uh, mathematics, biology, chemistry, being a polymath. What's your habit of reading? What does your um routine look like? Because clearly, in the last 1 month, 1.5 months since we discussed about
hmm.
starting this, you read one book and kind of read half of another book, or maybe more.
Hmm.
But I just read only one chapter. So, and there might be a lot of people who want to read books or who are just trying to read books, but it's not sticking, or maybe they're not making much progress. So, do you want to give any, like, just talk about your framework, like what's working for you?
Okay. First of all, I think it's very pretentious for me to give advice. Like, I don't think I'm such a pedda topu
There's
that
no
I.
advice. Just like everybody's learning from each other, and like what is working for. That's why I said
Hmm.
what's working for you. It might or might not work
Okay.
for others.
So what's working for me is I want to pick up books that I can't help reading. Like I want to
Mm,
be so curious and interested in the topic that it feels enjoyable to read it rather than like a chore to read. If it starts feeling to me like I should read this book, it's my job to read for 30 minutes a day, then something's wrong.
mm,
Whereas if it's like, I want to know what happened next, I want to know what Peter Thiel did next, what Elon Musk did next, how these guys built PayPal, then that curiosity will drive me forward. Or if I want to know, like, okay, now I understand like the first two parts of the framework to build great products. What's the third part of the framework? Now I've got these two parts down. I want to know what comes next. Then that will like automatically push me to read the book. There are many books which I start and read maybe 10%, 20%, sometimes even 50% of the book. And then I feel like, okay, this is not worth it. Like
mm,
it starts feeling like a chore to revisit the book. At that point, I drop the book. So,
mm,
like the easiest way to kill a reading habit is to force yourself to read uh, books that you are not interested in reading. So, if you're not interested in reading, like abandon that book, try to find something else if you're serious about reading. Uh, it could be fiction, it could be non-fiction, it could be anything. So, till like last month, I was just reading fiction throughout the year. I didn't read any
mm,
non-fiction. But from this month, I've been just reading nonfiction because that's what interests me now. So
mm,
just read whatever interests you. The second thing is I feel consistency is very helpful. Like at any point of like over the past 1 month or 1.5 months, I've been cutting down on almost all forms of content consumption. Like I'm not watching any like many movies. Like I had to make an exception for Padayappa because it's a Rajnikant movie, but otherwise I haven't watched many.
The rule.
Uh,
The rule is not to watch. So the exception is to watch Padayappa.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I'm not watching YouTube. I'm trying to spend not my time not scrolling Instagram, and I'm trying to not like read random books or stories just because it's a shiny object at the time. So like I'm just alternating between not doing anything or doing like the one thing which I'm truly interested in. So for example, if I'm getting agitated, if I'm feeling bored, and I feel like okay, maybe I can read Founders by the Founders or Hooked or something, and then I'm feeling tired, like I'm not feeling motivated or I'm not
Mm,
able to maintain
yeah.
concentration. I don't switch to some other activity that is doom scrolling or doing something lighter. I don't watch TV. I don't watch play games or whatever. And I just go and like lie down, sleep, whatever, and I feel that preserves that concentration much better because there's just one thread going on in my mind, like that one book that I'm reading or the two books that I'm reading. And the next time I resume, it's much easier to pick up from where I left off rather than like get back into that whole context again. And I try to read at least a little every day, like 20 minutes a day, 25 minutes a day. Some days I read more, like 1 hour, 2 hours. I try not to read more than 2 hours also. Like if you read too much in a day, it can leave you exhausted and demotivated to start the next day. You feel like I did so much yesterday, I didn't get anything else done, and that sort of
Mm.
kills your motivation to
Yeah.
resume. So I try to read somewhere between 20 minutes to 1 hour a day. And if you just maintain consistency over, like, if you read 20 minutes a day for a month, that's like 10 hours of reading. So that book took me like 15, 16 hours to complete. So that's very doable if you just like set aside 20 minutes a day and read consistently, read the things you're interested in. I feel that's what works for me.
Awesome, awesome. So you think, since you talked about cutting down on consuming content on different platforms,
Hmm.
um, you think basically when you consume some content, short form or long form, it gives you some dopamine, which is kind of context switching, and that dopamine
Hmm.
hit makes you want to get more dopamine hit, which essentially leads to mild addiction, followed by medium and like strong addiction, and then
Yeah.
that
For
also
me,
kind of.
more than the addiction or the dopamine hit, I think it's the context switching that's the main thing. Like, I feel I'm very sensitive to stories, and every piece of content is a mini story, right? Like, whether it's a YouTube video or an Instagram reel or like a short story or a blog post, whatever it is, it's a small story in some sense.
Mm, yeah,
So it's like if you read multiple stories, they're all like fighting in my mind for bandwidth.
yeah.
Uh, when I don't do that, I think there's just one story in my mind and it's easier to stick with that. Context switching is less.
Great, dude. This makes me think about something that Nawal says in one of his podcasts. That is like, uh, limit the number of desires you have at a given time. Just have one desire, because if you have multiple desires, you have limited bandwidth and energy, right? And
Hmm.
you can't give full attention to one of those, and like you'll not get anything done, or you'll be unsatisfied, something like that. So it's like have one desire, give full attention, focus on that. Similarly, here you're like, I don't want to have too many things taking my attention and bandwidth. I'll just focus on one or two things. Like limit the number of things so that there's more bandwidth that you can allocate to those one or two things and get more done in those things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Hmm.
I'm in a phase where I'm trying to do less things but do them well. That's all. So
Nice, dude.
it's very simple to say. It's a little
Very
harder to
hard to
execute,
execute. It's very lot of
but
things
I
in
think it's
life, right?
possible. It's doable, bro. It's
Yeah.
like it's not as hard as I thought it was, but it's very satisfying
Do you
to
also
get.
think? Do you also think um, it's harder to start and easier to keep doing once you start,
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like the
right?
first few weeks where I had to give up, not had to give up, where I tried giving up content. I was trying to stay away from YouTube. YouTube is like a big thing for me, bro. I watched like so YouTube was like I think it gave me its recap like, bro, you watched hundreds of hours of content. You're in the top 1% audience of this 0.6% of audience for some comedian and all. I was like, bro, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like this is how I spent my year, and it's just like so addictive. So
Yeah.
getting rid of YouTube for the first 1 or 2 weeks, it was very hard.
Mm.
I always kept reaching for the phone.
Yeah.
Instinctively, I'll open YouTube.
Yep.
And after some time, I just decided not to touch my phone for like the first half of the day. Even texting people is like a very addictive thing for me. I've realized. Like conversations are also stories that occupy the bandwidth in my mind. So first thing in the morning, if I text somebody and I have like an interesting conversation, I tell a joke, or we're talking about something interesting, that becomes like the main process thread for the entire day.
Mm.
So nowadays, I'm just like trying not to touch the phone for the first half of the day. Only like till 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. I don't text anybody, don't watch anything, whatever, and I try to get something else done.
Mm.
And for the first 2 to 3 weeks, it was very hard. But once I got into that habit,
Habit.
now breaking that habit seems like the hard thing. Like I'm like, why break it? It's going well, and it's more enjoyable.
Damn, dude. There's so many things that we read and it's in our memory, but applying it is not an easy thing, right? Because whatever you're talking about is the chain, right? Like for X number of days, you keep doing a nice thing. You don't want to break that chain, uh,
Yeah,
right? So it's like once you get started and build that momentum, it's easier to
yeah,
continue, and you don't want to break it. We know this. We have read it, but applying it is tough. You gotta
yeah,
you gotta resist that temptation to break it initially, but start it. Mm,
yeah,
nice,
bro. One thing
nice,
at a
bro.
time. It's all doable.
Yes, it's
Infinity
doable.
begins with one.
Yes, yes, bro. It starts with one. Have rational
Mm,
optimism. Every problem can be solved,
mm,
and everything is figurable,
mm.
or whatever that is. But you get the
Yeah,
point. Yeah, that's what
I get the
matters.
point.
Words are what, man? It's just to transmit my knowledge to you, my understanding to you.
Exactly.
So it's fine.
Exactly.
Even if it's a judgelaka, if you understand that's some damn stuff, it's fine, dude.
Tilak at the
That's
mafia.
yes,
Tilak at the
it's
mafia,
fine.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. On that note, it was a very nice discussion, very good start. As we just discussed, starting is the most difficult thing, and we just did the most difficult thing. So now it would be easier to continue. Hopefully, we will do we will do some small celebration at the 10th episode,
Ah,
followed by 50th and 100th.
ah.
Uh,
Okay, bro.
and we can also increase the frequency as we see that it's growing. So that,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, nice,
Yeah,
dude.
let's do the second episode. I had some other ideas also, like uh if we want to increase the frequency, we can also consider reading blog posts instead of
Yeah.
like entire books.
Mm.
So because it's more bite-sized, I think we can cover a complete blog post in one episode. We can talk more about the content of the post,
Yeah.
and also it's lesser to read in 2 weeks. You can
Correct.
read a blog post very deeply and discuss it. So we'll see
Correct.
how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Nice, dude. We can stop the recording, then talk about
Mm.
some personal, private, confidential things so that the audience
Okay.
doesn't have to know. Right.
Cool, bro. Yeah. So ending the recording. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace out.
Peace.